Today is Tuesday, and as you know, we've been going over every single day of the week. And we've been digging so deep into the ancestral energies of each day. And we're going to keep this going on. I always have to put a disclaimer. Maybe we come in one morning and we say nothing, it's silent. There was, just silence for that day, which is always beautiful. But as of right now, the transmissions are coming through, and I'm great. I'm in a great space to actually share those transmissions. So since it's Tuesday, as you know, in the system, this is then the number 9. We say Monday, or excuse me, let's start with Sunday is 1, Tuesday is 2, but Wednesday, excuse me, there I go, messing it up, right? So Sunday is 1, Monday is 2, and then Tuesday is 9, right? And 9 is the planetary system Mars. And we've talked about this, that Mars is a direct connection to protecting things. We even got deep and we talked about how to wage internal war on self to win all of the wars. We talked about that last Tuesday. So if anybody wants to tune into this consecutive build on this planetary system, they can check out, the last Tuesday's recording on this. So now, I want to also simplify things, because if I also get super excited on this thing today, that unless you're going to go out and run the beach and do some diving and all the rest of that stuff that goes with that kind of energy, it may be good to, especially on a full moon, just gently and calmly go into this next space and this next session within ourselves. It's always great to be gentle with ourselves. And, if you could take it slow with yourself, that's the best way to develop a relationship, as you know. So it's important that in all of this, that you remember your power and what's going on with you. And what I'm going to show you today is unequivocal proof, once again, how this knowledge and this awareness that we're talking about is not new. This is not Sevan's message. It has Sevan's spin on it, my unique spin from my spiral on my fingertip, and then the spiral on the top of my head. I got my unique thing going on, but 99 point whatever percent of me is still ancestral and connected in. So this means that the knowledge that I would want to connect myself with, if I, it's funny, we go and look to connect ourselves with something, but the truth we will always be connected to, because you cannot separate from the truth, because then there's no existence. And so it's interesting how we again go out to find something that is actually inside. So generally, if a master was teaching this, they would teach it from the inside, hence the term inner stand, because that's the way that the being would learn, in my view, the best way of learning themselves. And I will say, as I continue to move on and years will continue to span out, if they wanted to know, well, what was my technique, it is inner standing. That is why we use that word. Wholeness it comes right after that. And it's just saying that if you stand inside, if you stand up inside, then that's the great level of power. And we're going to show that again today. But there's also this saying that if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And I heard that when I was younger, and it always just stuck with me. If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And I seen that so much in the world, because if you don't have like your own level of awareness and your own level of knowing, the moment that someone comes through with a better story, even if that story doesn't connect with your story, you'll go with that story. And I see this, that's kind of what I feel like is the clone type behavior that goes on in the reality, where someone just accepts another person's story, now they go with that story. And then they can't figure out who was the originator of the story, because generally when someone retells the story, they add their own little flavor or pizzazz, right? So it becomes important also for the originator of the story to actually even say, hey, this is coming from in site. That's why they do that in references in books and index, cite where it's from. Unless it's from yours truly. That's just something that you truly have bought out and you didn't see it written anywhere, so you can't say, hey, this is who started this. Okay? And so there's this new set of knowledge, false knowledge as I call it, that's passing around the dimension right now about these Hollywood stars going into jail, and that this is all a cover up for them. And then this was like a post passed on Reddit. Nobody know who really pushed it out there. It was in a somewhat of an anonymous account, and it detailed this as a conspiracy. And then others just picked that right up and said, "This is what I think is going on." And we that have these information channels and know these data channels, we know the origins of when right now here we come with a new spin of this story. And then but you'll see the teachers take the story and then act like it's theirs because they want to get that initial, wow, he just discovered something that's deep. And truly that level of gratification with it, that's always going to lead to a bad process of awakening, not only for yourself and but also others. If you are leaning on, as we talked about teaching how to lead, uh, if you're leaning on someone that does not understand how to authenticate knowledge, how to tap deeply into themselves and to come correct with the message, that means that when that person falls, you'll fall. Also in that relationship as a leader, that means that what everyone says is so important to me. If I get a bad comment, I feel like, man, that's a bad comment. So I feel that. If I get a good comment, also, I feel the good comment and I'm good. And this equals like a roller coaster for a leader because you get the good comments and you get the bad comments. And if you're polarized, that means that you're sending, if, in a proper polarity, you're sending your energy outside when it should be inside. Inside, we can confirm with all the beings that are internally with us that we all bear witness that we're all connected. Outside, there is this disconnect that happens, and that disconnect that happens because the outside is like it's a replica of what goes on inside. So if you thought of a chair in your mind, which is where it will start first, it'll start in your uter, it'll start in your womb first. You'll conceive. That's what I conceive thoughts. I conceive ideas. I could see it, and I start to put it together inside of my mind as an inventor. And then it comes out into the physical reality, but it is like not exactly how I visualized it. It still had to go through the limitations of coming through the physical womb. So this lets us know that how this whole thing about, on the great levels of clarity, what all this knowledge means, what all this wisdom means, versus in the huge distortion, what we would see it as. Okay. So also our ancestors did a great job at making sure that they kept the symbolism, especially around, what we had come into experience with, to explain to us our stories and symbolism, which I'm going to show here in a moment. But we also now, being in 2020, have to compensate for this change in form. We have to compensate for the change in formula, meaning if this is something that you saw 2,000 years ago, where everybody was only seeing each other, when it's time to explain something, you even have to explain that through the people that everybody is seeing. These are not books for the future. These are books for the tribe right then. So when we go back into ancient works, we have to, in every way, make ourselves a part of the tribe. I don't believe in tribes with an S. I believe in tribe with no S. Make ourselves one with the tribe, and then come in and then witness what is happening. Witness what is being displayed. So our first thing here is to see, from as long as we can remember. I can go over diagram after diagram, as long as people could actually begin to write and begin to draw. And the interesting thing is that they act like people started from like caveman paintings and then worked their way up. That is hilarious to me. Any real artist draws from their mind's eye. And so it gives them the ability to know the sacred cut. Like it's not even something they have to know. It's like breathing. This is how you get an artist will start drawing something and it'll be like exactly the way it looks. And you have friends like this in school. You'd be like, man, this dude can draw. Or she can draw. And so this drawing ability is a natural ability that is projected from inside, internally. So to insist that mankind drew stickmen on cave walls and these diagrams are explaining to us everything, that's ridiculous. Because before we would even come into conception yet, personally, as a certain race of beings, there had already been a race of beings that were here on the planet going through the human experience in probably 7.0, 8.0 bodies, meaning that the templates have always been present as far as the vast of the human being. It's like what the mammals were saying. They were saying, well, this current humanity's idea is that as we go forward, we advance more. But actually, it's opposite. It's the further we get away from the origin, we actually degrade more because we're further away from the source. And awareness of the source gets more vast as you draw closer to it, not pull away from it. So, this is why the encouragement always was to go internally into self, to understand. So, now, right away, only thing that we're looking to establish here, because unfortunately, many of the images here are not as clear when it comes to, like, high definition, to, what does they call that, 144 pixels and all of that, pencil depth, because a lot of this has been copied or taken pictures of right out of cards. Okay. And these cards, I mean, like cards where they're like bamboo sheets, rice sheets. So when you're taking pictures of that, after time, it's not going to be as photogenically clear. So I do want to mention that today, that some people are like, oh, that picture's not as clear. But this is the best we can get, but the picture is clear inside of you. So what we're seeing here that we need to identify, because we're just taking this to the basics right now on Tuesday, so that we don't over stimulate ourselves on Sunday when there's already a lot of energy coming through. The energy felt really good today. I trust also that the energy that I'm feeling that feels balanced is the same energy that the tribe is sharing, because we're co-creating something. So if you feel chaotic over there, you just need to synchronize yourself into the voices, the vibrations, the tones, the meditation, because that's not the frequency that I feel right now. And I trust that. I see some faces on this line, some beautiful faces, and those face lines and smiles are allowing me to know that for sure is going well for them too, that they're feeling balanced. And we're in the eye of the storm. We're in the center of the gap of the spark plug, and there's no pain here. So what we're identifying very briefly is, you see on the bottom where, let me blow this up a little bit, because I can do that. Because you're going to see this reoccurring theme, and it's going to unlock some stuff for you. So you see how on the bottom there's already a clear reference here. It doesn't get clearer than this. Let me bring this up more. That the whole mandala painting thing, the whole stupa, the whole, in this case, this is Mount Sumeru. Okay. This is Shima. I believe the term is also in another language. This is Yggdrasil. Okay, so every single culture has the same diagram in their own way. So that means obviously everybody was dealing with the truth, because that's what the truth is. When the truth is self-evident, it means that we all know, first of all, that we're all connected. It's all in the same path. It's all in the same pattern, if you may. But we could be on totally different sides of the world, never each other externally. That's what I want to bring forth here. Just because you've never contacted a being externally does not mean that you have not contacted that being internally. And this is another fine integer that we need to use here. That through this coming into this reality, when I meet all these different people, there's still going to be a finite amount of people that I can meet in my life, right? I'm never going to meet everybody. I think the only person that came the closest to what you could even think about meeting someone was probably somebody like Michael Jackson. And people didn't really know Mike. And just to the modern phenomenon of the TV, like, that's the only way someone is going to externally know who a person is. Other than that, you don't really see, you have a finite amount of people that you'll see in the external reality. And then also, when you say you really know them, we know that unless we tap into some kind of depth of the inside of who we are, I will not necessarily know you just because you came over the house today and we spent a few hours together. It takes years and years and years to really know somebody externally. But that is not the case internally, thankfully. Internally, actually, every being knows the other beings. and they know the place of that being. So any seer that had the opportunity of being able to or artists or whatever you want to give them the term, they had the opportunity to give us, let's say, or draw to us the images of how these other worlds are constructed inside the internal consciousness. They would do it very proficiently, as we're seeing here. Give me one quick moment. I got something happening over here. Also, so what we're lining up is that anytime we see these kind of forms of these kind of diagrams, these are diagrams of the body. We have to recognize that also the same being who put this together, who clearly was aware of the truth, made a point to draw also the human body in conjunction with this and all the spirals. Now, I know this is like 101 for many of the metaphysicians that are listening on the line right now. But I think that the most important thing to establish sometimes is just the foundation. Because when we think about what are we protecting, that's a big thing for Tuesday. Like, what are we protecting anyway? Like, I just don't want to be sent on this mission. Like, let's say some of the soldiers right now, they don't know what they're protecting. They don't know if it's the corporate world. They don't know if it's the people. They don't know if it's the entire universe. They don't know if it's just their family. They're confused about what they're protecting. So that energy about being confused about what one is protecting is definitely a direct phenomenon going externally to try to protect external things. When internally you have the most power. If you could ever do anything about principalities, these means like the overarching energies, which we'll see here in a moment, that are involved in certain vibratory frequencies and spaces where others may project into, meaning that as we create a world collectively, there's also people here that think very distorted and move very distorted, and they're holding up a wavelength and a frequency too. And if we drew that out, we would draw it out with the things that correspond to them. But they would still be in the co-creation with us. But the co-creation, it's vast. So it's important to have a map. And it's interesting, again, that our bodies are the map. So as we keep looking deeper into this, now that we've already been able to establish that the coiling and the spiraling, what looks like the arm, is the body. So right away then, when we start blowing out pictures like this in these cultures, and we put other bodies out there, what we're saying is that we're saying that there is other forms. Okay, let me explain this again. The design in this center is the body. So, quote unquote, you are here. You know how they do that on the map. This right here is the body. So this is where it could get confusing sometimes because some people are like, well, they're looking into this thing. No, this thing is the body. Who's looking into it are the other beings. And just like me and you are here right now, there are other beings in other places right now. It's kind of like it's a part of the phenomenon of this reality. It's very hard for us to accept that there are other beings because we always want to figure out what they're doing with us and how they're doing with us. And we get into this whole thing where we're trying to figure out how they relate to us. But when you think about meditation and you think about being on a greater stage of your consciousness, you kind of let that whole us thing go. And you went into a whole, so you're not like looking at a person, look what they're doing. You're not like sitting there judging, like, look what they're doing, look what they have going on. You see how she combed her hair today? They fighting again. I can't believe they fighting because as a massive being, if you were doing that, well, you would kind of be caught up in the reality of the being who was doing all of that. So what is often showed here again, and it's just a reference for this ancient work of encoding that obviously these are Oriental depictions from the Orient, ancient Orient. This is how they're depicting things, right? So now this spiral, and I'm going to show you also, I do have to explain one very, very important thing about this. This is the most important thing as you're going to see. It's going to be the ongoing theme here when you see all of these drawings. These two beings are in your DNA, okay? Like this is what it stands for. That around you, your ancestors are always connected to you. They are your DNA. It's better to see them at like that. That's why you're going to see this consistent spiraling thing. It was what I was talking about before about everybody's actions is casting a net. Everybody sends a ripple in. Everybody sends a pulse into the cosmos. And then it gets entwined with everything else. And that's why you always start seeing all this embroidery and all these designs and all of these ripples and all the different directions that the ripples can go. That's the design, that's the style or the design of all the time these type of drawings. So the next thing that we're going to bear witness to here is what you see happening in the pictures to the right, which is that there's this coiling motion that it's like a beam. It kind of like starts concentrating all of the essences from everything and focusing it into certain points. Now, what this diagram is actually, and I'm going to show this here, is a clock. Like it came out also as a clock. If you see on the left side, there is what would be called, or I believe it's called a rankuku. It's an actual clock that is depicted in the model of the entire planetary system. You can't even just call it like Earth. It's like the entire cosmos is all here inside of you and then replicates infinitely. But what I'm getting at here is that this spiral motion, this ripple effect is the most important thing. We always talk about how this phi is very important, it's very powerful, it equals creation. We see these spirals. You know, we see the dragonfly's wing. We see all this geometry all the time, but what does it mean? And is there like a summary of geometry? The summary of geometry is the spiral. So this spiral force is the action of concentrating something, right? Like focusing something, and then also deconstructing it. Defocusing, if you may. And when something is, let's say, for instance, it originates somewhere, it's concentrated, and then as it emits out, it becomes less and less concentrated until it changes position. So cosmically, the course that we've been talking about, the currents are already being set by what is depicted here as these celestial bodies moving around the ocean, but really, moving around space. You think this is space up here, but this is really the ocean, and we're going to see this in just a minute. But what I'm saying is that there's larger forms, large as far as force, moving through the deep. And their motion is creating the currents. So the currents that we're seeing even in the ocean, the currents that are there, are moving because there's something in there that is actually causing that motion. It's actually, and I can't say it would be huge in our extent of knowing things that are large. This thing may be so small, but still moving and creating a current and a force. Because all of that is really based on focus. So let's rewind here, because this has nothing to do with the external realm. The external realm right now, like that we're living in, is somewhere in the outer ring. It's a projection itself. So it's in like the outer rings. Because why? Why is it there? Because I don't want you to think people like I'm projecting over the top of this reality. It's the behavior of what's happening, the lack of awareness, the division, the idea of division, the idea that one is separate. That is, if one believes that they're separate and one believes that there's not everything and all in here, not out there, in here, then consciously they project themselves into like a box. And this is already known to already be the design. That's why, again, when we go back into the beginning, we find, what do we see? These box-like shapes where the being is, or the confinement of what the being thinks that it is and where it's living, and how its kingdom is set up and all that is still like it's a very blocked kind of concept, right? So that's what I wanted to also just bring light to for us all, is that this whole unity thing is no joke as far as the level of power that we're talking about, as far as what it unlocks, but also a level of power that you would need. If you're without the power of unity, man, you're going to have a hard time for sure withstanding this and withstanding what's happening in the world, because you're going to feel like you're alone. And what I'm here to tell you is that what these kind of paintings mean, I'm going here on the other diagram, is that this is your DNA. It's not just showing you, because what happens is that sometimes when we look at these paintings, because we're not from this time per se, we will see, oh, that's a bunch of people up there. That must be their whole family. That's like how we interpret this kind of stuff. Like we have, we're coming from the future, right? No, that's not what's actually being said here. What you're seeing is that this is the DNA. This is what's running through everybody. And that central being that's in there is not the Buddha as an external, a Viracocha or whoever as an external. No, that's you. This is just a diagram trying to explain that. And if there wasn't so much like an egotism and now somebody that took it and then change what it means and all the different things that happen with ancient has happened to ancient knowledge. But the benefit is that when we don't have a division state of consciousness, that's the virus, by the way. When we don't have a division state of consciousness, we're able to see all of our family members, and this gets us to the next stage of awareness. By the way, it doesn't get us to the end. I've been at the end so many times to see that was nothing but the beginning. That it brings us to one stage of awareness. It's like we start to think about it, realize it, but we haven't exactly accepted it yet. I haven't subscribed to this yet. I feel like I know what's going on, but I don't feel like this is necessarily a part of me. So that's like level 1, because even that way of being is level 1. And that's what I was saying. Now look at this diagram. This is what there's so much knowledge in here, right? You see how, as we were just looking at, this thing goes all the way up here. Okay? But notice how, what is the demarker of where things begin? What is the demarcation of where things begin? Sea level. Okay. So this means that, because I'm sure the artist, he was done after this. He was like, I can't give y'all no more. I'm definitely not going to draw out the lower worlds. Because there's diagrams of the lower, but if this being, the one who drew this, goes and has to draw out the lower worlds too, by the time he's done, he's not even going to be in a condition to be good for nobody after that. Because to draw this, you must know this. That's where this culture comes from. This culture, like the sand painting from the mandala Tibetans, that's like the remnants of it. They draw that out from their mind because that's the world that they're living in their consciousness. They're not turned outside. They're pointing inside. So they see the world. So you see the entry point. You also see that face. I know you are not missing that this cobra here that you're seeing on the tree where the fangs are right here. I can't point it out because it's not a screen, so I can't use my mouse, or annotate. But you'll see there looks like it'd be 2 like guided ascended masters on the left and the right. But what's in the center, if you notice that the leaves on the background of the space between the bark and the tree form out 2 fangs. And this is, again, how deep this stuff gets, because that means the artist had to know how to take the background and to make the tree. That's not something you know. or excuse me, that you believe. That's something that you know. That this is not something that you just, oh, I see that I could do this with it. This is something, this is a place that you live. Okay. Now, also, when you're bringing knowledge and wisdom, obviously we can see. Now, this is also known as, and I want to hone in on one name here because it's very important, Sumeru. Once I heard that word, I said, oh man. Oh man, here we go again. There's gonna be some collapsing on some lies now, since there's a Sumeru. When we think of those two words, summer, Samaria, and Meru, Lameru, Lemuria, now we're kind of seeing that, whoa, even this idea of a Samaria and even possibly a Kemet is irrelevant to a Sumeru, where there was already a huge alignment of ancestors and all of the work had already been done as far as drawing about it and explaining how it was structured. And that all of the cultures, clearly because of DNA, would be descendants of that. Those would be the predecessors. And here we are right now. And since it appears that they had a little bit more time on their hands, and cell phones, I don't see everybody with cell phones here. Now, I did see one picture that everybody was doing some sexual stuff, but I don't see everybody with cell phones here. Imagine that. So this just means that all of these beings were already focused on the great attainment of mastering this time within self. And that every single culture was on to this. It's even rather new at this stage for us to be introducing other things beside how the thing is really put together, which is courtesy now of the Bible, because I'm just saying, man, I hate to jug at Jesus every time, but it's ridiculous. No real knowledge, no wisdom about self. Now remember, now all of this, because this is, our ancestors, man. Some of them, they just like the demon and the devil and the skull and all this, because that also has very important symbolism too. Like there's some skulls in this culture as we get into, let's say, Guru tomorrow. Just the concept of what a skull really is, and I believe that was that yesterday before yesterday, our sister came in, with a haiku about the bones, and just what the bones story is and how deep they are and how much memory they hold. Because in the calcite even on the pyramid, what they would call the outer casing of the pyramid, was stripped away because that was what was carrying the data. The data was in the calcite. The calcite is the bones. So it was like just a huge diamond mound of a diamond bone. And that, of course, is also a cognate of the dragon's egg. This is basically the outer casing of the dragon is symbolic to the protector, because that's what's protecting. It is symbolic also to the outer layer of the skin. The skin is protecting, not harming. So that's why now when you see this, like when you have enemies, you find them everywhere. But when you have only friends and allies, that's all you see. So now notice then, now somebody seeing this is be like, oh my goodness, it's going to eat everything. No. It already ate. The outside of the skin on the human body is the largest organ. It is a cognate of our scales. It is the cognate of the shining. It protects us. If I poke into your skin right now and you leave that open, what's going to happen? It's going to get infected. Where does that infection come from? Out here. The outside, the infections of the distortion from outside. So my skin is my protector. And if I poke it, it opens up. And bacterias and things, just foreign beings, they just, if you're trying to ask a bacteria, why are you infecting me? It's like, because I'm trying to survive. It's like the same reason why you was eating that meat last night. What are you doing? You can't tell me you could do it and I can't do it. I need to get in there because it's cold out here and you're warm. So then something has to be there like a protector and say, oh, no. That's the cherub, if you may. It's like in itself, it is that design, it is that pattern of the torus field, right? That's the sheaths of the scales of this serpent or dragon, if you may. It's like an ophanim kind of field where it moves like this consistently. And it creates this field of protection. And then also when something gets cut on your skin, that is the healing of this serpent, if you may. It mends itself back together. Okay? So now you just demystified again the idea that these larger aquatic forms around the structure are actually there to harm the structure is incorrect. Or harm what's inside the structure is incorrect. They are there to protect what is inside. Okay? So now, let us come to a conclusion here, because today I wasn't going to be long-winded about this. I wanted it to be very simple for everyone. I wanted us to once again realize that there is an infection that is happening, though, and it's like a program, and it broke the tree. It was something that I for sure could say needed to be done once. I'll just leave it like that. That we had to even go through the process of seeing what it was going to be like if we no longer were connected to each other. I know, as silly as that sounds. If we were one, for this one existence, believe that we were separate from each other, we didn't need each other, that we hated each other even, especially certain ones, and that the only use that we have for each other is to bring me my stuff, serve me, you're a servant. And so now we get an opportunity truly to determine if it's going to end up like, for us, what's going on the right, which is the compartmentalizations, or we're going to unlock the original template, which shows all of the family together, all as part of a DNA, and knowing that where we go on this tree of existence is determined based on where we want to be, because that's what you're protecting. You have the ability to protect yourself. It's around you right now. It'll always be there. You'll always have their purpose, though, is to keep you protected as much as possible as you venture out into different fields that you say you want to be in. Now, as we know, just like they say, even the dragon and all them can perish, meaning they can take damage. If you look at the mythos of the dragon, it's very interesting, because, again, it's just enlightening again about what the protector's role is, and then how the protector was even destroyed. They destroy in these dogmas and in these systems on a subconscious level the being's the protection that is around the being, which functions as like wisdom. Okay, if you want to understand what that symbol means, or the person has the dragon wrapped around them, that means that the wisdom or the skin is wrapped around them, protecting them. So you can see how someone else can take that exact symbol, because you've seen it many times, where the snake is twined up around the person. Oh, evil's got him. Satan's got him. Look at them. They just worshiping it. They don't even know what it even means to themselves. They took it all out of context. They didn't realize that the great sheath, the derma, the dream, which is the anagram. Derma is an anagram for the word dream. The skin, which is the shining one that creates the illusion. Because also what it's responsible for doing is projecting the field around you that you choose to exist in. Because it has taken the role of being outside, it is basically the initiate of the external. So how you choose to send the energy, it's like you're riding this dragon for real. But it's not just like a mythical creature riding through the air. Every time you think something, the dream or the derma or the skin or the shine is projecting that out into the reality and then attracting that back to you through the light and the shimmering of its skin. And because we're constantly looking to actually see a verification of this, of the tree, remember, we would need to be in a certain position to see our light, our shine. In a box, in an illusion, you're not going to see that. So this is why it's important to navigate sometimes with just the awareness and just the knowing, and not necessarily looking for external confirmations until you get out of the box. Also, once again, we have so many ancestors, it's like just data banks to call on in every single extent, meaning that just memories that can be inhabited. So the true use of the ancestors is not all the time to come and save us from something. That's not like a directive in that kind of programming, if you may. The ancestor is a memory bank, basically. And you could go into that bank and you can actually live that entire experience. That is the greatest gift. It's like, what else? What more would you want? Now you want me to come and protect you? For me to come and protect you means I need to stop my projection. You have something that you were already built with a protector. Like, okay, I see what we need here. We need protector class. We need everyone to be aware that you have a protective field around you. And your vibratory frequency is determining the strength of that protection. And this thing, like I said before, what is Earth doing? Because she's the protector also. That is this scale, this dragon, all the thing, the shimmering, the taking in the sun's light. That's also another one. So what did I say that she was doing before with all the situations that were happening? She was in this comatose kind of state, just taking it. Boom, boom. You know, all of this fighting from the children, bombs dropping, all these kind of things. But then we started sending this energy. Even the mammals are there sending energy. All the first tribes, many of the first tribes were sending the meeting. Russian shamans, they were all diving in to do this healing and awakening ceremony for the mother. It worked. The mother gets up. All right, time out, first of all. All right, everybody go home. Go back home. That was the symbol. Even if you couldn't go home, you had to go back home. Now, what happened to the deer? Oh my goodness, y'all trashed the place. Let's get regeneration happening. So rapidly, I'm sure the oceans right now are teeming with life. Now that the boats are not out there fishing hundreds of thousands of fish, millions of fish every day. This means every single day. Somebody was sending me statistics. I think it was Finn sending me statistics about how many things are lost every single day. 400,000 trees a day. Right now, with one human, with a group of humans off, we have millions of trees a day of power coming in. We have this oceans now restoring themselves and the current enlivening itself, getting itself ready to go through this process of its birth. And its birth is our birth because we're all connected. We wouldn't be the only ones activating. I know we love this idea of self-activation, that we're going to be the only ones to activate. It's actually, in order of magnitude, the earth would activate. And then it would spread that activation to us. Now, there are early bloomers on the tree. Those who get up, even mom ain't up. They walking around. Whoa, this is wild. What's going on in here? There are early bloomers on the tree. Many of us woke up even before the session of the planetary wake up. Now the planetary system is waking up clearly. And then now this waking up into awareness, that's what's going to beam down that wall of death. It's going to remove all of the distortions and the misconceptions and the fears. And it's just gaining momentum right now. It's just, like when you come out of sleep, you need to kind of like get yourself together. You already have power, so you're like, everybody stop. Let me get myself together. Oh, let me get my face together. Get some leaves over here. And then now that awareness is coming. And so the reality for us is, again, just treat yourself. Treat yourself to something that you would see as invisible, but is all of the nourishment that you need. See yourself. Now you realize you have even your worst fear. Like a lot of people are afraid of snakes, afraid of dragons. And your worst fear has been protecting you the whole time by facts. You got one. Now, of course, as you yin, you yang. So there are things that, the dragon, there's certain things like letting the dragon control things all the time. That's like letting the warlike aspect of yourself control things all the time. I'm going to show you something else. The beings did recommend moving from the heart for obvious reasons. Let me show this to you. Actually, there was actually, I think a picture didn't get in here because there was okay, that's what happened. All right, give me one quick second because there was one master key missing. Yeah. Okay, there it is. Okay. Now, technically, this is the solar plexus in this whole area. We don't even have to isolate just moving from. I'm going to blow this up a little bit more here. 1 second. I just had to move these things actually around the desktop. If we were just given this and what's below it as also just a diagram of awareness, it would kind of make sense to me that even if in the crown chakra and all of that kind of stuff, like in design, let's just talk about design as a designer because the creators are great designers. Now, if I'm going to design something, I'm going to move the energy source more to the center because I had to run less cables. There's a lot of things that I as a designer that I'm going to want my energy source somewhat in the center. I'm going to want to move from the center because it takes less time for me to get to all the regions. So it's not that, let's say, for instance, the top of Mount Meru is not on point, literally. It's still that we wouldn't put the actual fuel supply on the top of the mountain. We would put it like in the center. That's why we said before that going to the center of self, going to the center of the spindle is the biggest key to this. Because now if you look at this, it's just basically saying center yourself. Now, I even heard, and I cannot confirm this, but it does make a bit of sense to me that the heart in the human being, you know how our heart is a little off to the left? That the heart actually was always in the center of the being. And that the same reason why the planet has this little tilt, which is confirmable by the stars, by the way. Some people say, well, how do you even know that there's a tilt on it? They could be lying because they just want to deny everything. When you do a time lapse, you actually see the tilt. So that little tilt could possibly have moved our heart a little bit off to the left. And bringing yourself into center, bringing your eye into the center, just making an intention. They do this even in massage. To make an effort to bring stuff that may be off to one side or another, just to the center as saying, I'm going to bring everybody in. We're all going to have a meeting together. We're all going to get together. We're all going to love each other here. because this is going to be the most powerful point of communication. This is the center. This is not the top, because not everybody want to hike up there. We're going to make it right here at the center. So now also here's the thing, because the serpent thing is replete, meaning that it seems like, again, the energetic potential of the spiral is always shown. Do you see this area down here? Now, it's not hard to tell that they're saying this is something serpentine, something aquatic. And as I said before, we got all of these parts from things that are even displayed separately in the ocean. George Haeckel's radiolaria, some of them, the shells that were discovered being seen in the exact patterns of the heart, the exact patterns of the pancreas, the muscles, the mollusks, all being pieces and parts of the body. And this form of the body we're using being a collaboration, a co-creation. So, but seeing in the bowels, there's also a serpent there, if you may, or a hydra. There's different terms. And what this is a reference to is this is reference to your heater, like your fuel source, another fuel source. And you see the ventricles and things, they connect to power. Like the artist is doing his best. He's got the ventricles there, and he's showing one ventricle going right into the center. He makes a point. I'll blow that up a little bit more. He makes a point to show you one of those ventricles going into the center, like, yo, this is cable work. This is bio cable work. We got one connection from the large and small intestines going right into the center of the beam to power it. This is why it's important to make sure that get some water here. I guess there it is. It's important you get a lot of water. Okay. So it just means that small intestines, large intestines, as many have seen that have gone on a cleanse, once you move out that lining of fecal matter, it makes this thing vibrate. It's very simple stuff. As more and more food and things get in here, ever since you were even born, because it's a long track, it just kind of hangs out on the walls, and then it gets like hard. And then your whole system, let's say down here, your burner, it gets like how if you've used a distiller before, you start seeing all of that calcium building up all around the sides. So basically, then what happens is, because this thing is like, let's say the rattler, like the rattlesnake. This thing is used to rattling, like vibrating. And through its vibration, it sends a lot of power into the rest of the chakras, right? That's why they call that the root chakra. But it's just, again, taking it into the basics, but going deep in there to realize that, once again, that this is being powered by that. And that just as amazing as this could all look, this is us. Like, even when I look at stuff like this, I'm like, fascinating. And then I go something like, I wonder who lives up there. Until I take this within myself, and then you'll get always the tree in every design. Like, there's either tree on the left, tree on the right. Again, we're going to dive in this a little bit tomorrow, so that way we can get a little bit more clear as we keep going forward. But you see now the tree over here. So they always depict that tree. And it's funny because even the tree starts at the top. To further hint that all of this is the layers of creation. And I guess that's the last thing I'll say about this today. this was important. This was actually what was coming through the dream last night when I was just dancing around the dream. It was explaining how, like, every existence that I'm living, that I'm bringing in new inhabitants into my world. And that every time a world comes to the close of its spiral, which there's never a close in the spiral, it's like a continuum, but every time it makes one complete circuit and there's a transition that's made, all of what was done and all of what was a part of that previous cycle all lives in that world. And if you ever want to return to it, it would be like going out of the gates of yourself and go making this trip all the way back to when you were into complete illusion. And it also shows you in every single diagram that there's always a limit. I guess there has to be a limit because the artist has to stop drawing. But we never end in seeing this 7 always there, the 7 layers, 7 days of the week. And it just tells us that this experience that we're having is for us to come into this stage of awareness to who we truly are and how to protect ourselves, what to use for protection, why protection is really there, and most importantly, that the protection is used for projection. It's almost the same word. That the protection is the projection. So as long as you know how to project yourself into the space that you want to be, it's like you never die. Now, they always show this in a couple movies. It's like if you know how to teleport, you just teleport right at the end of the death. And then you go right into life again. Boom, boom. All right. Where is this one at? Oh, this is when I was tripping. Let me get out of here. Poop. Which one is this? Oh, this is the one you saved this one. All right, save this one. Save. Let's stay here for a while. I remember that feeling. It was great. You can slide through all of the realms that you're connected to. And because, again, you have DNA, that means you're connected to all of them. Gaining access is allowance in self. It's making things very clear. What do all these symbols mean? Who are these other beings that are around me right now? At least bring out their chiefs. That's the crown of the Magi. You see the bird, you see the snake, and you see the lion. Bring me your chiefs. Take me to your leader. Now, the great initiation. Not who are you, who are we? Imagine sitting in front of a being that's vast, and instead of be like, who are you? What's your story? Like we do on Earth, it'd be like, who are we? That's going to be a good one in the meditation. Like, if something come at you, just be like, hold on, who are we? And then it just cancels out. Staying into that zone is it then self of making sure that we're cycling energy through self. That everything is good here. Just like we talked about the mushroom, that you can, if we have to take anything that you're saying and you're giving out, it makes us all laugh. It makes us all have euphoric visions. It makes us all feel like we're in an orgasmic state. When you're doing that around people, you made it. I'm telling you, you can go anywhere in the cosmos. They're going to fling the doors open for you. If you can bring in sweet smells and great beauty and honor, you can bring in those things. That's where the resource comes from. That means that you use your galactic boat to go and pick up the goods. And that's how we are treating ourselves now. Like all of this is now, you know how, let's say they have like this, I don't even want to use the word, it sounds weird. Let's say nursery rhyme. I was going to the other one, lullaby. The nursery rhyme, like, so where this comes from is when you are about to go to sleep, if you have like a process, now in the Toltec dreaming, there's an entire process. But the beginner's work is to basically find something, write something down that is like an honoring for you. Don't make it too short. Something that you really have to put to memory. It could even be your awareness about how you understand all this is put together and what it's like. It's planting, they call it planting the dream. And so it's basically something that once you gain the repetition, you start to think about it. You start thinking about this world that you're going in, how the worlds are set up all together, how the 7 days of the week and all that goes on in the drama of the dragon mothers. And then how you're just rising above that. Now you hit the base of the tree. You've come out of the water from sea level. And you start climbing up the tree. Starts getting really steep. You decide to maybe go to the left. But then you remember, I'm just going to keep that course. And you get to the center, you get shot up the elevator shaft, and you come out to the top, and there's another tree there. You're sitting down. So it's just like something that you do, and you just put it to memory. It doesn't really matter the details too much, as long as it's an ascension. And then you go into sleep with that, and it sets the floor for your dream. As long as it's committed to memory. If it's not committed to memory, it's not strong enough. It's not in the bank. But if you set it to memory, this process, you arrive there because you doze off before you even finish. And then bam, you start there. So in this space, in this time that we're in right now, this is what we're doing. We can't keep sending our projectors and our protectors into chaotic fields and let them keep projecting more chaotic fields and getting scarred up literally in there. Too many chinks in the armor, too much damage. Now your mirror and your lensing system gets broke. It's like you keep sending your protectors in, like, because every time you hear something that you say is distorted, a war must be fought and won. So this does boost morale sometime, but it's like, why are you sending out your protection all the time to fight and to war? And now it's hurt, it's damaged. When you need to know that it's not protection, it doesn't work the way people think. It's not to fight other things. You project yourself to where it's the best ideal situation for you. That's what you do. You don't sit there and conflict with your other variations of yourself. This is like a master of wisdom arguing with a fool. There's nothing that you're going to be able to tell the fool. He believes that he's right. So where do you project yourself? Away from it. So that's what I have today, tribe, as we go into our meditation. Today, we're going to visualize in your meditation, this Sumeru within self, and how important it is for you to be centered in all of that. I say all of that because when you look at these paintings, it's a bit busy. There's a lot happening, a lot going on. And that's life. Like even around me now, there's thousands of life forms. There's birds over there tweeting in the tree. They're doing something. There's a gecko running across the top of here. There's a snake moving probably underground. There's all types of things that are moving and in action. And that's how these worlds look. There's all this stuff going on. You're not going to stop that, nor do you want to. What you have to do, though, is realize how that comes into order inside of yourself, to put yourself in order. And then this external environment, especially the more and more you get around natural things, nature, if you may, in its original state, it responds. This is how many of us have been on journeys. And in the morning, actually, this was even in the city. Generally in the morning, there's all these things that go on, especially in the city in Costa Rica. There's dogs, there's roosters, there's all this stuff that goes on. There's the traffic, you hear horns, you hear all that, especially if you're in the mountains because it's kind of echoing off the mountains. We went on a journey so deep. I think it was the peyote journey. Beating the drum all night, dancing and singing. And we got up in the morning. It was like a Monday. It wasn't like a Sunday or a weekend. And it was so quiet. I remarked, I said, man, it's impossible impossible for it to be quiet right now. Why is it quiet? And it was because we got quiet. We reached such a height in our consciousness all that night climbing that mountain, because that's what it's like. You can't go to sleep. You got to beat the drum constantly. You can't drop the stick. You can't walk in the wrong way in the circle. You keep taking the medicine. You got to honor the mother, the father, the sister, the brother, the uncle. Everybody gets honored. And you're in that space with your brothers and sisters, and you just keep going and going and going and going. And it's like by 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, you're almost slayed until around 2, 3 in the 3, you start getting your second wind. 4 starts coming around, the sun starts coming in, and then you feel this calm through your entire being. You toiled all night, here comes the joy. Many may be going through labors right now. It is not our place to tell you won't go through labor, because it would be like telling you can't create. Both of them come together. We're here to be there for you. We're here to not tell you it doesn't hurt. Like it's like telling a woman in labor, it doesn't hurt. We're here to bring you comfort, because when you have someone there that's comforting you, even when you're going through the pain, you survive. So that is our roles here. The shaman is not going to stop you from throwing up. He's going to be there holding the space, letting you go through your process. So many are detoxing from the illusion, right? So just remember this, because you are the stability in many beings' life right now. You were the one that woke up early, right? So you see him go into all these things, and your heart goes out to him, literally. And as all of that's happening, you feel like that you want to get them out of the pain. It's a natural instinct. Natural instinct for one who's tied in and tapped into their heart. Nothing's wrong here. However, grandma has to come in and explain sometimes that, baby, let them go through their own pain. Let them go through that process, because that's how they learn. And also, it's a different kind of learning. And this is it right here. It's a different kind of learning, because once you learn something, you start seeing how you don't need to go through lessons. Listen what I'm saying. Once you learn something, right, the hard way, you start thinking about the wisdom that was already given, and how if you had to follow that wisdom, you wouldn't even have to go through the hard way. So you start thinking, well, why don't I start doing that right now? That's what maturity is. Being rebellious just means that you keep hitting the wall. Boom. Like, I don't care. This is how I want it to be. And then the wisdom is, my child, this is how you make it what you want it to be. Because that's the next thing that has to happen. If you're railing against a certain system and you're telling them this is how you want it to be, and that's their system, that's an error. That's where the co-creation went. If the mass majority and the conscious and the co-creation wants to take things in a certain direction, it's like that's them. There are other co-creations. There's other boats sailing off here. This one illusion that is going into a certain direction, that's not the only boat leaving. There's others. And so this is where we can come into a great level of awareness within ourselves through all of this, because all this knowledge, it points back to that the true being that's in control of things is you, and that you actually have some stuff. Like we just talked about the protector today, and that's not the only thing that you have. We just went through every single day of the week of how all of these beings are actually in allegiance with you, and they just need to be told what to do. And if you're giving them commands, be afraid. That's all that they can do. They're just taking commands. So there it is. Let's bring ourselves into the center of ourselves. Lords of ourselves, masters of our own life. Coming up the coccyx of our spine. Out of the coccyx, through the spine. Sitting now into the seat of the center of the heart. We're not even going to go to the head today. Headquarters. Going to sit in the center of the heart, and we're going to align the heart to the center. We're going to bring the heart into its, what is it? That's the chestahedron. We're going to bring the heart into its perfect alignment. So that way you can have that central core. And then also you're going to personally work on, your bowels, your heater. Just make sure that, things are cleaned out as possible. That's one of the biggest ways to boost your immunity. And you're now seeing how all this stuff is tied in and connected. So we got this other protector out here that's just waiting. It's just waiting to get a little bit more charged up. Because this thing is not even just designed to just heal you from cuts and to keep you protected from viruses. That's not its only service. That's like the yang to its yin. It's really a projector. It's responsible for giving you the reality that you want. That's why there's all that symbolism around it. There's tons of symbolism about this stuff. But now you see it in the true light. You can use it as a protector or you can use it as a projector. So here's that meditation. We have 15 minutes of golden intonation. Looks like that we were able to actually accomplish having a clear broadcast today. There's about 275 of us here inside the Zoom chat. That's amazing. Just wanted to say wholeness also to everyone that is in there. I can't even say out there anymore. Everyone that is in there, going through this process with self, loving self, dissolving the forms of division and the misconceptions, which is just ignorance, being wise now at a great time. Look at you. I couldn't pick a better time. You know how like some of y'all just like to party until it's just like you just barely make it in. I know if that's some of y'all, that's what you did. You got it right at that right point. But you do have to climb though. None of us can climb for you. These are proficient maps laid out. We go up and down the mountain all the time. We saw the ladder going up and down. So we go up and down this mountain all the time. And this is what the terrain looks like. We even try to clear off the path at times, but you're going to have to walk it. Walking right into the center of yourself. Loading up your projector and protector. Merging these forces and getting rid of the duality. If you're still like in a racial bind, you're looking at another rainbow, but the program's got you. The matrix has you. The false matrix has you. If you can't connect to them, you can't connect with all of the other things. Are you going to let one misconception, one program disconnect you from everything? Because if you have one break, this is so simple to understand, but common sense, any of these complicated, you could take the cell phone, anything that has wiring in it, which is a symbolic to the stars. If you pull one wire, the whole damn thing don't work. I could take one fuse out of your car and your car will not kick off until you put that fuse back. It's one break that powers down the entire thing. That's why you have to be such a master at eliminating those kind of misconceptions that every time you see, so I don't care how big, how bad, how ugly, I'm just going to tell you where to go. What are we saying today? Fix your teeth. Whatever you got to do to actually transmute the energy into what it is that you need to transmute it. But if you are trying to get rid of it as the all, this is going to be difficult, as we said before. Then you cannot accept the title truly. You may say to everyone, yeah, I believe we're all connected, but you will not be connected. You have to see the power in the connection to be able to connect. So that's the thing here. Now we're seeing the power of the connection internally with ourselves and how that turns us on to everything. And it's interesting once again, because it's an action that we're doing, but it's already done. And that's how paradoxical the reality is. So now we're going to assume our meditative pose. We now have this opportunity again with each other to, as in a record, put a little course on the cosmic disc. Us all here together, a reference point, a backup, if you may, of just a space that we reached where everyone here was co-creating in alignment about being aware of our full spectrum self. And that's our meditation. Here we go.